TNTP has always been focused on how can we make sure that we have equal opportunities and outcomes for all kids, but with a very specific emphasis on kids who grow up in low-income or under-resourced areas, lots of kids of color. One of our early clients was here in LA. It was the Compton Unified School District. We were trying to figure out sort of how we were gonna compel people to the idea of leaving careers in law or medicine or finance to come into teaching. So we were up late at night. One night, it was probably 2 o'clock in the morning, and a bunch of the old school TNTP crew were on the phone, and we came up with this tagline of Compton kids deserve a Beverly Hills education. Okay, that's gonna get people's attention. It's not unlike, I think, most startups, but I think that the difference here was that we were all so driven by kids and making sure that every kid in America could have a great teacher in their classroom and get a great education.
It was wild. I mean, we were really young, we were really inexperienced, and we were really stubborn, and there weren't that many of us. And yet, we felt like we were a part of something huge because we were getting to work on big problems. Like New York City had 10,000 teachers that were uncertified. Most of them were teaching children of color and low-income students in the Bronx, in Harlem, in central Brooklyn. And many of these folks had no credentials whatsoever. And the city didn't have anyone to replace them. And so it was our job to figure out how to convince career changers to make a commitment to teaching and to do it in those neighborhoods. I remember the day that Unintended Consequences came out, being in a bar in New York City with a bunch of other TNTP staff members, watching Michelle on CNN talking about it. And we couldn't believe that our little organization was getting interviewed on a platform like that.
And the crazy thing about it at that time was that the organization, which was maybe 7 years old at that point, had published a really important report called Missed Opportunities a couple of years before that had created not only a real stir in the field, but also actually led to change in policy in a lot of school districts. I came to DC in 2009 to join the Obama administration, and The Widget Effect had just been published by TNTP like a month before. This was one of the most significant pieces of research to come out, and that's because TNTP was doing policy in a way that really nobody else was.
TNTP was a very different nonprofit that had very clear goals and metrics and outcomes and a clear strategy to get there. When we work with the New York City Department of Education and they say, we need 3,000 teachers, we don't need 10 teachers, it is hard for us, but we're gonna figure out how to do it because we understand that is what the client needs.
I learned first about TNTP when I was doing my first tour of duty at New York City Public Schools. Part of my job at that time was to try to bring those common sense policies into our public schools, and with the help of TNTP, that's actually what happened. And as CEO, I mean, there was nothing that I was prouder of and nothing that gave me such joy than to see this collection of incredibly passionate, dedicated, talented, funny, caring people from all over the country. And that's really the engine of the great work that TNTP does.
In 25 years, TNTP has grown from serving a few districts to really being the preeminent consulting organization for school districts all across the country. One of the ways that I believe that TNTP is able to have such impactful results is because it is a multifaceted organization. So whether it is the research reports that they put out, such as the Widget Effect or the Opportunity Myth, they are also thinking about what does practice look like and staying close to the ground with educators and with districts on a regular basis.
TNTP always impressed me as being an organization that was responsive to what communities needed and what's necessary to serve all students, especially students who are Black, brown, and from low-income backgrounds. They have been able to evolve their offerings based on that demand.
During the course of our 25-year history, we've taken this work one step at a time, trying to really impact change at every level of the system in order to make sure that that magical piece, that making sure we have effective teachers in front of every student, that actually prevails. And what we've learned during the course of the time is that there are lots of barriers and challenges to making that be a reality, and we've continued to tackle those problems one at a time. Yes, it's absolutely going to be critical that K-12 play the role that it needs to play in setting kids up for success, but what's going to really be even more important is that we have public and private partnerships, that we have cross-sector partnerships across, for example, K-12, higher ed, workforce, Department of Labor. And so what I'm really looking forward to in the next 5 years is leaning into that so that we make sure that education does deliver upon its promise of helping all children be successful and obtain economic and social mobility.